This section looks at angles in standard position. You'll see the angles on the left are all in standard position, and the angles on the right are not in standard position. In order for an angle to be in standard position, it must have its vertex at the origin, or at the 0, 0 point on the coordinate axis, so right here, and it must have its initial arm on the positive x-axis, so right here. The terminal arm, or the arm that moves around the coordinate grid, can be anywhere in the 360 degrees around the x-axis, but it moves in a counterclockwise direction. So to summarize, the vertex is on the origin. The initial arm is on the x-axis, positive x-axis. And finally, the terminal arm, which is the other arm of the angle, moves in a counterclockwise direction. So if those criteria are met, then we have an angle in standard position. You can see on the right, some of the angles have a vertex on the origin, but they don't have an arm on the x-axis. Some of them have an arm on the x-axis, but their vertex is not on the origin, and some of them are neither. From grade 10, we know that we label our quadrants by numbers. Our positive quadrant, where we have a positive x and a positive y, is quadrant 1. And then the quadrants are numbered in the direction that the angle moves. So we know the angle moves counterclockwise, so this would make that quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. If I was going to draw an angle of 130 degrees in standard position, I know my vertex would be in my origin. I know my initial arm would be on the x-axis, and then I could use a protractor to figure out where 130 degrees is. So to use a protractor, you're going to line this little notch part up with my 0, 0. I know that I'm starting at 0 here, so that means I'm going to use the inside measurements along my axis. So I'm going to go over to 130, where I'm going to draw a little dash so I can tell where I'm at. And then I'm going to remove protractor and connect the line. So this angle here, we're going to call this theta, is 130 degrees. Another thing we might want to find is the reference angle. And the reference angle is always the angle with the closest x-axis. So we look at where our terminal arm is, and the closest x-axis is going to be this axis right here. We know that this axis is going to be at 180 degrees if this is my 0 degrees. So in order to figure out my reference angle, I need to figure out what is the angle between 130 degrees and 80 degrees. If we subtract these, we can determine that our reference angle is going to be 50 degrees.